All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Gunn, and I'm coordinator of digital scholarship here at Catholic University of America Libraries. Today, we're going to be exploring AI literacy. This presentation will be given by my colleague Charles Gallagher, research and instruction librarian. The workshop is being recorded and will be made available at a later date along with the slides. Take it away, Charles.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today. My name is Charles Gallagher. I'm one of the research and instruction librarians here at Mullen Library. Today, I'm going to be discussing AI literacy. AI, as I'm sure you've heard, has become a hot topic in recent years. Going from computer science classrooms to daily use, it can seem at times that AI is an overwhelming presence in modern life. My presentation today will attempt to make sense of AI, how you can decide what AI tools to use, how you can use them more effectively, and also address some of the ethical and practical considerations to using AI. You can see we have a very ambitious agenda today. So we're going to start with a little bit of background on AI. We'll talk about some of the uses for AI tools. We'll talk about some of what goes into deciding on what AI tools to use. We'll talk a little bit about some of the prompt engineering basics. We'll also talk about some of the ethical considerations regarding AI, and we'll conclude with some final parting thoughts. Next slide, please. A few important things to keep in mind before we proceed. First and foremost, this presentation is not from the perspective of a computer scientist or programmer. There are people on this campus who have a much better understanding of how AI is created and developed. This presentation is told from the perspective of a librarian, in a similar way to how I or my colleagues might explain how to use the library catalog or databases effectively. Second, any use of AI must be in accordance with the university's policy. Individual instructors may have their own views and ideas about how AI can be used. Be sure to refer to any relevant policy before implementing an AI project. Saying the librarian told me I could do this is not going to fly in future projects. Third, treat all work produced by AI as a draft. I plan to emphasize this several times throughout the presentation. AI is not an all-knowing ethereal being. It's a computer program that can make mistakes and doesn't have a concept of copyright or morality. You are the one who will be held responsible if the work violates community standards, so do not take the easy way out. Now that these points are out of the way, we can begin. Next slide, please. A little bit of background on AI and AI-related elements. When discussing AI technology, and tools which have arisen in the last several years, we are broadly referring to large language models or LLMs. LLMs are at their root text prediction programs that are trained on large datasets. They are trained to respond to text inputs, drawing from their training datasets to provide an answer. You may have already seen a problem with LLMs. Their responses are limited by the timeliness of their datasets. Earlier versions of ChatGPT could only accurately respond or answer queries that dealt with material already inside its dataset. Since it took time to upload new datasets and train the LLMs, this posed a serious limitation. LLMs are also known to hallucinate or make up information to answer questions. RAG models can help to address this issue. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. This model allows LLMs to search the web and outside datasets in addition to the training dataset. RAG models allow LLMs to answer prompts using more up-to-date resources than can be found in its training datasets. RAG models also provide citation information about the sources consulted. This feature allows the users to double-check the source information to ensure accuracy. So in this picture here, we have a diagram of what a RAG model looks like. The query goes into the system. It will then use a retriever or a web searcher to go out to the library, to the internet, and to other data sets and other programs that it's identified as being relevant. It'll then consult with the generator or like the LLM, and then once it takes all those different pieces together, it will then produce the prompt. Now, this is, of course, a simplistic description of how LLMs work, but hopefully you can understand that the AI tools we'll be discussing and looking at are not doing sophisticated mental processing. They are simply taking prompts and doing rapid prediction analysis based on previous practice. Once we consider AI from that angle, maybe we can understand more about how you can use AI and what you can't use AI for. Next slide, please. So what are ways you can use AI? Well, there are a lot of ways one can use AI, and here are just a few examples. So one, you can use it to brainstorm an outline. So you can use it to kind of think of broad strokes and consider different angles of ways to approach a project and, to outline and to make plans for that. You can use it as an examples for work or teaching. So if you want to generate an example of AI generated text and how it differs from the way a person approaches writing, you can easily generate that. Review and critique of your work if you're dealing with a draft, and once you've removed any identifying private information or anything that you don't want to be included in the internet or to be used by later models, you can upload it and get review and critiques of your work. It usually will give you very broad descriptions about ways you can change or alter a work. You can also use it for research. If you've been to any of our workshops over the last 2 years, we know we've highlighted a number of different AI tools that can help you with your research experience. Not necessarily a replacement for library resources, but like an enhancement, another way, another avenue that can help you discover relevant resources. Some have also used it for trip planning. So just kind of like broad strokes identifying relevant sites to see in particular countries or regions of the world, or maybe identifying like local hotels that can help you plan more effectively. And of course, many, many more. There are, of course, wrong ways to use AI. A major critique is the way AI tools can enable easier cheating in schools and academia. However, using AI tools correctly can make our day-to-day work easier and hopefully better. Next slide, please. When deciding on AI tools, there are some factors that you should consider. One is what do you want the AI tool to accomplish? The purpose of why you're choosing to use one of these tools will help you decide which tool to adopt. Different AI tools can accomplish different goals or purposes. Second, when you are looking at an AI tool, does the AI tool cite their sources? Verification of information supplied by AI outputs should be a given. The same way you would expect an author of a book or a journal article to cite their sources, an AI tool should also do the same. Next, does the AI tool have a subscription cost? If there is a free version, what limitations exist? Some AI companies provide a free version with limited functionality compared to a paying version. You may have to decide if the free version will suit your needs or if it's worth paying $10 to $20 a month for improved functionality. Is there information about the company or AI tool? Does the AI tool have an about page where it discusses how the system works and what type of resources it pulls from? Is there information about the tool and company available in journal articles or web pages? It's rare to find anything on the internet that someone isn't giving their opinion about. The point is to employ what librarians call vertical and horizontal reading. Vertical reading refers to the information provided by the resource itself. So looking about the about page, looking about what sources it cites, looking at how it's organized. And horizontal reading refers to looking to outside sources of information. So looking at the company page, looking at different companies or maybe universities that it claims to be partners with to see if that's actually true and what their opinion of these resources are. These are our traditional evaluation methods that we encourage students and faculty to use when they're evaluating an online resource. And it's the same concept for AI tools. This can be the same criteria. Finally, consider looking at recommendations from experts/librarians. The Ithaca Generative AI Product Tracker is a list of AI tools that are currently available. The tracker maintains basic information about tools that include a wide range of uses. While not updated as often as it used to be, the tracker still provides accurate information regarding AI tools. And the university libraries maintains a research guide titled Generative AI in Research. While the research guide is far from exhaustive on the subject, it can provide a good starting point to consider how you can learn more about AI and AI tools. And Kevin just shared the links into the chat, so feel free to take a look at those as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please. So what AI tools should you use? Not every AI tool performs the same task or has the same purpose. Some AI tools focus more on research, while others focus on developing subject-specific responses. So I thought it would be helpful to describe some of the different versions of what works best for each task. There are, of course, far more out there than the 3 types I have listed, but hopefully this might be a good starting point. So first we have generative AI, which is more of a general question prompt and answer tool. Useful if you're doing a basic search or looking for a general answer to a prompt. Intended for a general audience, these tools are popular and they are some of the more well-known ones out there currently. So ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Copilot are a few examples. Research tools are another type of AI tool. Research tools will search academic journal articles, ebooks, websites that are either available open source or in databases. So there are some database subscribers now that are providing research tools that search just in that particular database or in their company records versus other AI tools which will search from open access resources. Research tools are not intended for the general audience. They are best utilized by researchers, students, and faculty who have to do complex research. Some examples include Undermine, Elicit, and a feature to ChatGPT called Deep Research. Finally, we also have teaching and learning tools, which are geared toward education. Learning tools can help students easily review their classwork, and teachers develop quizzes and presentations. Naturally, these tools are geared more towards the student and teachers in both K through 12 and college. Some examples include Jungle and Magic Slides. Now we'll try to do a little bit of exploration of these different types of tools. Let's see if I can share my screen. Go here and see if this works. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and go into ChatGPT. So this is that general purpose tool that we talked about. And I'm a big fan of the American Revolution. I like studying the American Revolution in my free time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, what are some American revolutionary sites in Maryland? So I'm planning a trip and maybe I want to have a fun day trip in around the state of Maryland. And let's see what our response is. I'm just going to search the web. A little slower than usual, but yeah, here we go. I've got a list right here of key revolutionary and colonial sites in Maryland, which is very cool. But maybe instead of doing just a general trip here, and what's also nice about it is you can see that it's going to cite its sources. So where we talked about before about using an AI tool that provides citation, well, ChatGPT in this instance is providing citation. Now, let's say that I'm doing research. I want to write an academic paper on the American Revolution, and I just want to do a very broad summary to see what's out there on the internet, what kind of resources are out there. So maybe I want to use the deep research feature. So I can go here to plus, and I have a couple options here: create image, think longer, and deep research. So maybe I want to do a question of how did America win the American Revolution? What's interesting about this too is now that I'm getting into more of the research tool phase, it's going to ask me for a clarification. So it's going to ask me to extrapolate and to describe my research prompt. And maybe if I'm just starting with a project and I really haven't thought too much about it, maybe this will give me a few ideas of how I can go from there. Like maybe I can focus on the military strategy or foreign alliances or economic or political factors. So it's kind of prompting me or forcing me to rethink my research question in a way that seems to be interesting and can be more involved. Now, if I went ahead and chose one of these options and submitted it as a query, we're going to be sitting here for 5 minutes waiting for the thing to load because it does take a while. So I'm going to Julia Child this, and I have a prepared American Revolutionary War prompt already done as deep research here. So I can see here that after I've inputted my prompt with, it'll show me my original, yeah, what military tactics did the Americans use to win the war? And then I said organized by battle. And so it went ahead and 4 minutes later, it gave me this long like text organized by the battlefield. And it also gives me sources I can click on. And these are linking mostly to websites like Wikipedia and battlefields.org. So this wouldn't be a prompt I would want to use or cite as part of a research paper. But what it's going to do is it's going to point me in the direction of general sources that provide like very good background information. And I can also look at this prompt to get ideas about what type of keyword terms I need to incorporate in my search, so that when I'm actually starting to do the more serious journal article book part of the research project, I can take these keyword terms and this background information, and I can apply that to my search terms when I'm going into the library catalog. So using an AI research tool, I can effectively help to get that important background information and a general overview of what resources are out there. So that's ChatGPT and ChatGPT Deep Research. We'll now go into Elicit. Elicit is another research tool, and it provides really a lot of very concrete background information. See if I can toggle over. It's not going to let me do that, but I can use find papers. So I'm going to ask it a research question again. How did America win the American Revolution? And so what's nice about it is that once I generate it, it's going to give me a quick an abstract here that's going to summarize the 4 sources that are listed. And so I see here in this paper that once again, I see quotations. I can see links to outside sources, which is where they're pulling their information from. Now, that sounds nice, but how do I know that this information is accurate? Well, what's nice about Elicit is it allows you to click on the link, which will then pull up a abstract about the article that it's claiming to pull from, and you can then chase it down to its original source. So in this case, it's taking me back to a outside website, which I believe will be Semantic Scholar, as I'm waiting for it to load. Okay, well, it's taking a little too long to load, but if I were to really was worried about what if this was a good source to use, I could then follow that information. And maybe this is going to be a good article for me to build my research paper on. So that is just kind of one way you can look at Elicit. It also has it in table format here, and I can add additional columns as well. So I can see, the main findings for these papers, and I can look through the limitations. They're really more for like scientific research than necessarily this historical topic, but I am still getting results even with a historical topic. So that's pretty good. We're going to be putting out a video on Elicit in the next couple of weeks, so definitely stay tuned for that, because that has a much better deep dive into the way that Elicit works. But as you can see, I'm identifying research papers. I might have to take these sources and go to the library website to see if I can get access to them if they're behind a paywall. But at least with this way, I'm able to find them, which is the first step. And then I can then see if I can get a physical copy or a copy to use. The last one is the teaching tool, which is a bit more fun, I think, than necessarily in this context super relevant. But what's really nice about Jungle is that you can say you can have it go into you're going to give it a link to our YouTube video, and it will generate a quiz based on that YouTube video, so it can test you. And what's neat about it is that if you get the answer right or wrong, it'll tag the part of the video where the answer is. So you can verify that the information is accurate and quickly identify a section maybe that you need to review and edit. So again, I'm going to Julia Child this because it does take a few minutes to generate. So I have this question here, and the name of amethyst originates from a Greek word meaning what? I'll click that. Explain why it's right. And what it's going to do is it'll explain, and there should be a link to the video. Yeah, so this is the video I originally uploaded into it. And so this is a video we used in an earlier presentation a couple weeks ago. So then I can watch this video to see why my answer was correct, or if I got it wrong, what is the correct answer? And I can I can verify that information because it's going to tag it and show me where I need to go. So probably not as important for academic research at this level, but a good helpful study tool on a topic maybe that you're not super familiar with. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now if Kevin wants to head back into the presentation. Okay. Once you consider the AI tool you will use, you should next consider the kind of prompt that will give you the best result. Crafting the perfect prompt is often sometimes called prompt engineering. And prompt engineering is optimizing generative prompts with AI tools. You can find all kinds of videos and arguments about prompt engineering on the internet and on some of our library resources, such as LinkedIn Learning. But there are a few basics that we can cover here. One methodology or approach is called the CLEAR framework. As librarians love their acronyms, this is a set that was developed by Leo Lowe, a past president of ACRL. The CLEAR framework is a guidance of best practices when prompting with AI. And each of the letters, of course, stand for something that's an acronym. So concise, logical, explicit, adaptive, and reflective. Next slide, please. C stands for concise. You must be clear when developing a prompt. AI works best when you only include the relevant sections and cut down on unnecessary words. In the first example, the prompt is too wordy, whereas the second prompt is more straightforward and to the point. So instead of saying, please, uh, please make a quiz on the American Revolution, the quiz should be multiple choice and consist of 5 questions. A more concise way to put it is create a 5-question multiple choice quiz on the economic causes of the American Revolution. So we're being much more concise in that second one. Next slide, please. L stands for logical. The prompt should make sense and have logical progression. Think about how you would learn how to complete a task. You would, of course, want the instructions to make sense to you. And while AI systems are not thinking machines, developing a coherent prompt will make the results more coherent and more, well, clear. So don't, in this example, we talk about making a list of available hotels, then we switch to talking about train schedules, then we go back to hotels. And if someone was trying to talk me through the different steps they would need me to do, I would want them to talk about the hotels first, then talk about trains rather than, come jumping back and forth in topics. So a better way to organize it logically is to create a list of 4-star or better hotels located in Paris, France, then locate a schedule for a train that runs between Paris and Nice. Next slide, please. E stands for explicit. You want to use proper word choice to get across your point in as little words as possible. This element is similar to clear. You want to get across the exact terms to ensure the results are what you want. Think details that you would need to know if you were completing the task. And so in our example here, the saying, I just need a report on World War II, well, that's a very broad topic and that could go in so many different directions. So if we add more explicit terms to it or explicit concepts to it, it might instead be, I need a 200-word or less report on America's involvement in World War II. Much more explicit, much clearer, really. Next slide, please. The next 2 elements deal less with specific prompt making and more to do with how to adjust and evaluate using the tools. A stands for adaptive, which basically means being able to change or try new ideas and prompts if the first results are not ideal. Similar to how you might need to revise your search in the library catalog or databases if your first result doesn't garner the results you hope, you will likely have to revise your first prompt too, and maybe even try a different AI tool altogether. So switching from ChatGPT to Perplexity if the prompts are not generating the best result, or providing more detail about the kind of quiz you want ChatGPT to create if the first result isn't perfect. Next slide, please. Finally, the R stands for reflective. You should evaluate the results, fact check the information provided, and follow up on any links. As I've said in the beginning of the presentation, treat all work produced by AI as a draft. Be prepared to heavily revise and edit the work to ensure accuracy. Next slide, please. The clear principles may be helpful to guide prompting and using AI technology, but how does one actually prompt? A simple formula to keep in mind is task, instruction, and context. Albatross and Levy, they both wrote a book called Teaching with ChatGPT. It's a very interesting read and gives you a lot of great ideas about how to use ChatGPT, but they came up with this simple formula of tasks, instructions, and context. So task is literally what you want the AI tool to create, a general statement about what the results should be. And instructions define details how the task should be completed. So it's the details that will define how the final product should look, and it's basically what you want it to do. Finally, context provides the necessary background information to help define what a successful result would look like. So in the side panel here, we have a prompt broken down into different segments to illustrate what the different parts of a prompt look like. So the blue obviously shows help me develop an outline on a presentation on the American Revolution. Well, there we go. That is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make an outline for me. And then with the yellow, we now have the instructions. The presentation should cover the causes of the American Revolution, such as taxation, the battles of the American Revolution, the aftermath of the American Revolution, and the legacy of the American Revolution. That is the instructions. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build an outline that addresses the causes, the battles, the aftermath, and the legacy. And then finally, we have our context in green. The presentation is for first-year college students in a college introductory course on American history. So if I am a presenter and I would want, if I was being told by a colleague to write an outline on the presentation on the American Revolution, this is the stuff that I would need to know, right? I would need to know about the cause. I would need to know like what it should contain, and I would also need to know the audience that I'm writing it for. Similar to that, again, it's hard to like separate the idea that AI is a thinking thing. It's not a thinking thing, but it does need to know this information too in order to provide the best response. So kind of by taking these three elements and incorporating them into your prompt, you can get more accurate and better results. Next slide, please. So citing and acknowledging AI. When you use AI, you want to make sure you cite or acknowledge AI properly, especially if you're planning to publish the work. For specific rules about citing prompts or results of AI tools, consult the appropriate style guides such as MLA, Chicago, or APA, depending on your needs. If you don't find any information in the exact guide itself, usually if you look on the website, they will provide guidance as well. I'm sure later editions will address it more fully, but you can also just look at their website. They usually have good guidelines for that. If you use AI for research, you may consider detailing the use in a methods section of a book or journal article, the same way you would describe using any other technology or tool. You might also consider adopting an artificial intelligence acknowledgement plan. The plan includes important considerations such as how do you plan to use AI, how do you plan to address privacy concerns during AI use, permissions granted to use AI tools by involved parties, and finally concerns related to reproductivity of resources of results. McGill University created the plan, so I would definitely refer to the research guide for further information. But at least with that way, what you're doing is you're saying, here's how I plan to use AI, here's how I'm using it, here's how I'm addressing these concerns and these issues. And by doing so, you can at least ensure that people know how you're using it, so there's no like grand surprise or no one can accuse you of misleading them about its use. Next slide, thank you. Challenges of AI are some ethical considerations. It's always worth recognizing that there are challenges regarding AI and its future use, versus one that we've already kind of discussed, hallucinations. But hallucinations, as a reminder, are when a LLM makes up information to answer a question or provide a response. We can see the effect of this in the real world, such as a recent case of an AI-generated reading list that got published in major newspapers. And so what ended up happening was that these readers of this newspaper saw the list of books and they went to the local librarian saying, I can't find these books. And the librarians were confused because these books don't exist. So that's something to be aware of. You know, that's why verification of information is so important. Even if you ask ChatGPT to give you a source, you want to follow up and make sure that's a real source. Don't just assume it's something that you can definitely trust. Biases and filters are another challenge. Remember, LLMs are trained on material written by humans, run on code designed by humans, and will generate content for humans. There's always a chance of bias in any response one gets from an AI tool. Filters can also affect the results by removing content that might be seen as offensive to a general audience. While it makes sense that AI providers do not want an AI tool to generate offensive content, it can impede or affect results for those seeking information or doing academic research. A recent blog from Aaron Tay, a librarian in Singapore, details how academic AI tools can distort or inaccurately provide information on very controversial periods of history, massacres, and horrible events. Because these AI programs that these companies do not want to be sued because a 5-year-old went online and found horrifying images, or it made horrifying images for a child. But at the same time, it can then throw off the results on these horrible events in human history that, while they were horrible, historians still want to study and research to, for a whole bunch of reasons. So be mindful of that, especially with academic research, is that you want to make sure that if the results you're getting don't really make a lot of sense, then you want to follow up with outside resources and consult like library resources, for example, as an alternative. A lot of what I've covered up to this point have been more kind of what I call micro or personal concerns, like individual basis kind of concerns. However, there are some real macro concerns about AI that can affect us collectively. Privacy concerns must be recognized. Once information is uploaded into an AI tool, you have no idea how that information will be used in the future. Only upload information or documents that are stripped of personal or private information. So once you put it up there, it's going to be incorporated into a training data set, or might be used in other ways. So just be mindful of that you don't want to just take, like, ChatGPT, grade my students' homework and just upload the papers to the chat thing, because that would be pretty bad from a privacy perspective. And there are, of course, real environmental impacts that should be mentioned too. AI tools rely heavily on data centers to operate and function. These data centers require a lot of power and water to run efficiently, taking up resources which might be used for other purposes, all of which can exacerbate current concerns regarding climate change. So there are some real environmental impacts too that definitely should be addressed. And I don't really have an answer for how to address those issues at this point, but it's definitely worth bearing in mind that when you're using an AI tool, it's not a zero cost. There is a real cost that does exist out there. So just something to be mindful of as we move forward with AI developing and become more universal in our daily lives. Next slide, please. Some final thoughts. Take all AI content with a grain of salt. There's a lot of hype about it. A lot of people, saying in 5 years it's going to replace humanity, or in 5 years it's going to take over the world. I mean, there are ways that bad actors might be able to use AI for very bad reasons. But necessarily buying into the hype that, that this is going to be a end of the world stuff or completely change the world is overblown. And there are certainly people who benefit from, like, encouraging that or buying into that. So bear in mind that this is a tool, and just take whatever like hype you hear with a real grain of salt. The technology is always evolving, so things are progressing very fast. Probably 6 months from now, some elements of what I've talked about today might not be relevant anymore. So just be prepared. If you're going to engage with AI, be aware of how it changes and what developments occur, because what's true today may not be true in a couple months. Again, I will, as I've said throughout this presentation, treat AI content as a draft at best. You don't want to be like a publisher who posts a list of fake books in a national newspaper, then has to retract it, and look at like massive egg on the face, so to speak. And humans using AI, not AI replacing humans. So find ways that people can be encouraged to use AI, not necessarily find ways to cut corners to cut out people, so to speak, in the process. As they say, I've heard around someone say once that, it's not going to be AI taking your job, it's going to be the person who knows how to use AI that's going to take your job. So kind of like learning how to use it, but also be aware, that it's not necessarily a replacement for human work or labor. Then the next 2 slides should be my references and suggested reading. Two pages of references. And it should be one last slide. Are there any questions?
Hey, hi, Charlie.
Hello.
What about trying to get faculty to shift their thinking from it's a bad thing shut it down, make policies against it, helping them shift their thinking?
That's a good question. I think it's like, understanding what it can be used for good, like how it can be used effectively and correctly. Education, I guess, is the goal. Like, to get, I mean, I think the best approach is, you want to be cautious. You want to work with it and make sure you're not you're not becoming too dependent on it. But I think just kind of talking about the ways you can use it correctly and practicing that is certainly a step in the right direction, I think, in that regards.
Is the website that you sent, is it new or has that been there?
The Ethica or the
The
library
generative
website.
AI library website.
We've had that up for, I think,
Oh,
a year or two.
a while.
So
Okay.
it's up there.
That's
Yeah.
good to know. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
And constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, we're adding
Looks
stuff to it all the
great.
time. So
There's
Oh yeah.
in the nursing world, just recently the National League for Nursing issued a vision paper on AI, and also the National League for Nursing, or no, the AACN, American Association of Colleges of Nursing, a report on AI. And I went to an NLN conference a few weeks ago and it was all about AI. So it's really moving in our world.
Mm-hmm.
the professional associations, as they establish more procedures and guidelines and that, I think you'll have, going back to your first question about faculty who don't want to do it at all, they will see that the guidelines are being established, and then
Yeah.
they'll be much more receptive to that, I think. So
This one just came out yesterday, examining the potential of AI to transform nursing education. And it was
Mm-hmm.
thought leaders got together in Boston, and now there's this report. So yeah, I think that's going to help us.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've read articles on how some nursing school, or they were testing it out, where they were like helping it using AI to create like practice scenarios for the
Yeah.
NCLEX for students, and that was interesting,
Yeah.
the way that they're kind of like interactive element to it to help them practice and get used to the kind of thing they'll be dealing with in both the test and in real life. So
Yeah, the general sense at the National League for Nursing was to embrace it. They had some really excellent speakers,
cool.
and yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys. This has been excellent. Hope you all learned something, and it was a pleasure presenting to you all today.
Thank you.
thank you for coming.